All right, welcome everyone. Today is Wednesday, August 23rd, 2023, and this is the APIServer Network Proxy meeting. This is a subproject of Kubernetes SIGs and a SIG cloud provider and SIG networking. And as such, we follow their guidance, which basically means treat everyone kindly. So yeah, there is nothing on the agenda currently, and I would ask folks to please add yourself to the participant list on the agenda. But I guess we have some next topics, so I'll open the floor if anyone wants to take up one of the topics that we have here. Does anyone have a topic they'd like to bring? Okay, so I guess, I don't know, Joseph, is that you typing about branching strategy? And
yeah, that was me that just put those two items. Just
yeah, I'd say take it away.
Okay, yeah. I think that there's probably already a link. You're presenting your screen. In recent meetings, we've discussed that, yeah, issue 510. In the last couple weeks or more, I think I've had a few people chime in, and everybody basically is in agreement. So I don't think there's really anything needed to hold open. I think we could close this as having consensus, and repo admins could go ahead and make the proposed branch names and start using the new tag version scheme. And that would also unblock the Liggett PR, where I think he was going to do some 1.28 Go mod updates.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think I agree with you, Joseph. Like, we left it open for a few weeks, like got some comments, nobody seemed to object. So yeah, I'd say we could probably move forward with that. Mm-hmm. And welcome, Walter. Okay, so what was the cool?
Yeah, and then late last week, I noticed this issue come in. There's a silly kind of nil de ref that I think I'm the author responsible for it earlier this year. We think that starting in tag version 0.1.2, this became an issue in ProxyServer, but only for certain values of a flag. The routing strategy has to include like dest host. If you just use the default routing strategy, you won't hit that code path. And I sent a PR that I believe fixes the nil de ref, but it's kind of a larger refactor. And I just wanted to solicit review. I already got a coworker, Tim Auclair, who took a first pass and gave a bunch of feedback, which I've incorporated. But yeah, this is just to solicit additional eyes, or to see if anybody would prefer like a smaller tactical fix. But I'm eager to get this out and then stamp a new tag to go and replace the bad versions with.
Okay, cool. Yeah, it sounds like you just need a couple more reviews here. So maybe, yeah, we can get those in by next week and see what happens.
Yep, thanks.
Like, I'm happy to take a review. Like, I'm not necessarily an expert on this stuff, but I'm happy just to give a review. Probably good if we got like maybe Imran or Walter or someone else to put a review there.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Sounds good.
I'll try to find some time next week to get the review done.
Okay, appreciate it.
Okay, cool. Are there any other topics people want to talk about today, or do we want to review any of the next topics that were put up here? I see, Walter, you have one about the 0.2 branch. I don't know if you want to talk about that.
So we know there are some gRPC changes incoming from KK, and they involve updating libraries ahead of what we consider to be the current minimum. So I think I looked this up, but the current minimum I think is like 125 or something like 126. Irrespective, if we put those into the client, then we are forcing KK forward in a way that we don't want to do. If you go down, I think I have a comment in here. Yeah. Okay. So our current docs indicate the main line is meant for 127 and up, but the 127 Go mod is on an earlier version of XNet, gRPC, and several other pieces. So that suggests that it is time to branch. And as part of the branching, then the question is, how do we want to branch? Do we want to branch to 0.2, which would be numerically the obvious thing to do after the current 0.1? Or do we want to sort of accept that we're probably going to branch every time we have a new KK that we want to correspond to, or every time there is a new KK, and do what things like client Go do, which is to keep their minor version in line with KK's minor version. And that way it's much easier to really reason about, okay, which version of KK does this library correspond to?
I mean, I'd be +1 for doing the latter, but yeah, Joseph, please go ahead.
Yeah, I think that's basically the same as I think, Walter, you were just connecting as we were talking about the first agenda item of the branching strategy. We were saying over in the issue where there was some discussion, there was pretty much unanimous agreement to basically stamp out per KK minor versions, similar to client Go. So I think that we could proceed with that effectively now or immediately, and that the Jordan Liggett sort of 128 gRPC prep work could land in a 128 branch, or could expect to be consumed in a 0.28 a network proxy minor version. Yeah.
And then I guess the one follow on is, and I'm happy if the answer is yeah, let's discuss it here. In KK, when you want to cherry pick something into an older branch, the release managers, there's an entire group of release managers, and the general philosophy is the original reviewers of the PR attest that they believe there is no problem checking back the LGTM. Then the release manager goes in, you assign that it's with what you're doing is not a feature that is being backward ported, but is just a bug. And then the release managers or someone else goes in, does one final check that they believe it should be safe to backport, and then they'll go ahead and backport. So the one interesting question we get here is, right now we are missing all of those groups and processes because we're small. And I just to be clear, I'm not a fan of bureaucracy. I'm not saying let's build all of that infrastructure for a very small project, but I think it is good for us to sort of have a quick chat at minimum and come up with guidelines about when we think we should backport fixes. Right? Like, do we generally think we should do it? Do we think we should do it when we think there's a CVE or something else? I mean, I think we have one piece of guidance, which is we're trying not to get ahead of KK at the version that branch corresponds to, which I think is good guidance, but that's about all the guidance we have.
I guess what do we need to do? Do we need to actually formalize this in a document or something? Or how do we push this forward? Because I mean, what you're proposing sounds good to me, but I don't know, do we just agree to it and then we do it, or do we actually have to notify someone on the release team or something? Or
I don't think we have to notify anyone, but at minimum, I think it would be good to have it in our notes here. Even better, I think, would be, once we agree here, would be to take whatever we agree to and put it into the markdown file that we have on the project that has to do with releases. But I think that's about it.
Just for my part, I've done a few of those PRs in KK where we request connectivity client to be sort of backported, and I was doing it mostly for bug fix reasons. And I think I managed to get a few backported for purely adding metrics instrumentation. But I agree with you that there seems to be there was always kind of a bit of ambiguity around process or like showing our work. And I agree with you that the new branching strategy is probably going to allow us to better show our, changes restricted to bug fixes or whatever. So yeah, I can include that in scope if I update that release.md or when I do. Yeah, I could appreciate any pointers to that KK process because yeah, I'm not that familiar with it.
I can do it, but if you get to it before I do, just look up cherry pick process Kubernetes, and I think you'll find it.
I see. Thanks.
All right, so I guess the bigger question here is, does someone want to own taking this guidance back to the repo in the form of a PR or something?
Well, so do we actually have any guidance beyond sort of what we've already talked about? I mean, does anyone have opinions about? I mean, so one interesting thing I'll point out, which I knew but had forgotten, and Joseph reminded me. Anything that goes into the library, the client library, is part of the third-party package, and will be reviewed on the KKPR when you submit. And so from that type of cherry pick, the KK is going to re-review it, and presumably someone from API Machinery is going to have to approve it. It would be good to approve it, but cloud provider technically can also do it, I believe. But in that case, those ones, since they're replicated in third party, are going to be seen by a KK reviewer. The interesting thing is that any agent or server changes, those get consumed as an image tag in KK. And so, in fact, agent and server changes are not actually going to get re-reviewed by the KK folks. I mean, many of us in this call are also KK folks, I grant you, but.
So I'm a little confused here. Could you just like walk me through how do the PRs that we're putting into the API server network proxy project relate to backports into KK? That's kind of a disconnect for me.
Oh, sure. So as an example, let's live in this magical new world because it makes talking about this a little more obvious. So when we get to 129 on KK, we are fixing our 029 branch. And we discover there's a problem with dest host. And we think, hey, you know what? I'd like to get this dest host fixed in earlier versions, because even though 129 is what we just cut for Kubernetes, the majority of customers are on 128 or earlier. So we backport into 028 from 029, right? We just backport the fix into an older branch. And that's now, so now we go from like a 028.3 release to a 028.4 release. Okay, so far so good. But to actually get that picked up by 128 Kubernetes, there are two changes that we make, and they are technically go through the cherry pick process we're talking about here, where we go into well, in fact, it gets, normally what you do is you check it into head and you cherry pick it back using the official cherry pick process. For us, it's a little more complicated, where because we'd want to go into the KK and we'd check out the 128 release branch of KK, and you change the Go mod file for the Cube API server. That would pull in the new version of the Bootstrap code. Sorry, not Bootstrap, third-party code. Wow, mixing streams. Sorry. That's going to update the third party or vendor, which I think it updates the vendor. Sorry. And specifically, the vendor changes that it's going to update are the ones that come from our client directory. So our client changes from 120 or 0.28.3 to 0.28.4 are going to show up as a diff in KK vendor. The other thing that you will presumably want to do at that point is, because that just changes the client code, but it doesn't change the version of agent and server that the tests run with. So there are also a couple of manifest files in the hack, is it hack cluster? One of the hacker cluster directories under KK. There are some manifest files, and we would want to change the version of the agent and server images to go from 0.28.3 to the 0.28.4 images. And so that's what would be involved in backporting a fix for something on our side all the way through to an older version of Kubernetes.
Okay, so like, I guess there's not like there's not a code dependency from KK to the API server network proxy, but like we might have to update like transitive dependencies and whatnot to go back into KK. Is that
so? There is one compile dependency, which is from the Cube API server to the connectivity client.
Gotcha. Okay, cool.
Right, and that's what specifically, if you've ever wondered why we have two sets of Go mod files in this project. We have one which is for the agent and server, which no one else depends on, and then we have the second Go mod, which is the connectivity client Go mod file, and that is specifically so that we can control. That's what Cube API server depends on, and that's so we can control the Go mod or the dependencies that we're introducing to Cube API server.
Okay, that makes sense to me, and thanks for spelling it out. I was a little confused there.
Yeah, no worries. Like, that's why we have this meeting, right?
Okay, cool. So it sounds like, first we need to do a little write-up to talk about our branching strategy. And then we also need to write up like what our process will be then for how, like if we have a change that needs to go into a historical version of Kubernetes, we need to spell out that like we'll put it in, this branch that corresponds to the minor version of Kubernetes, and then we'll cherry pick from that, or we'll reference that when we try to bring in the dependencies in KK. And this is the process we'll use to bring it in there. Do I have it right, I guess? Okay, cool.
Sounds good.
So I guess like, I don't know, like Joseph or Walter or Imran, if any of you want to like own that, or like I could try and write it up and put it in a PR, and we could at least argue on the PR or something. Like, I'm cool either way.
I mean, I have to say, like, I am a huge fan of having someone who's just learned it write it, because putting it in new words is frequently valuable, and putting it in words also confirms the learning. So I'm a huge fan of that, but that kind of lets me dodge some of the work. So
yeah, for sure. Okay, I will jump on the proverbial holy hand grenade this time and give it a try, and we'll see what happens. And if I get it totally wrong, I guess we'll have an interesting review.
well, then it was, I mean, as weird as it sounds, I think that's the case where it's most valuable, right? Because that's where we fix whatever I failed to teach properly.
Cool. I'll try to get this up sometime like in the next week, but no promises.
Well, thanks for volunteering. And as one of the repo admins, I can follow up and actually execute, like create the branches and the tags for the first set. I assume we'd want to probably do all of the currently supported Kubernetes minor versions, like set up the corresponding branches, or we could just do the latest. I'm not sure. Any opinions on that? It might be getting ahead of ourselves a little, but like in the initial execution.
Yeah, I mean, for simplicity, I'd say like start with what we have and then roll forward from there. Not trying to go back and fill all the historical versions in. Maybe like if we have a need, like if we find we need to patch something in 27 or 26 or whatever, then we could make the branch at that point. But I wouldn't want to see us just like do a bunch of work, trying to make all these branches and everything, and then it's like, okay, now we're not using any of them or anything.
Okay, so maybe the initial execution is something like, we continue to put most new code in master branch or main. We are introducing this new release-0.28 or 29, whichever the appropriate one is. And we now are no longer using that release-0.0 branch. It's totally obsolete and unused, but that'll be the initial wave of change.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense to me. Like we indicate we do all development on main branch. When a new release comes out, we cut a branch for the new release, whatever the minor version is, and then we continue doing development on the main branch, and we backport or we cherry pick from main branch to our release branches when we have a bug fix or something, assuming it's not a targeted branch only, kind of fix or whatever. Okay, cool.
You can add me
yeah, I would say Joseph.
That issue.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Joseph.
I'm sorry. I'll assign you that issue since you volunteered to take the release.md.
Yeah, sounds good. And I would say we can probably do this work in parallel. Like I can work on the documentation, and if you want to get started on, I don't know if we have a branch to cut yet or not, but I guess when we do the 1.28 release or whatever, the 0.28 release, I guess that's when we'll cut the branch. You're muted, Joseph.
Oh, I was just reading Walter typed pupper. I'm not sure what that means.
I was just admiring El Miko's dog.
My dog is like freaking out right now because there's like storms rolling through the area, and she gets like really nervous about it. So I've got this like 130-pound dog that's like breathing down my neck and walking around. Yeah. Okay, cool. Anything else we want to talk about on that topic? All right, sounds good. We got about 4 minutes left here. Do we want to get into this connection management extensible issue, or should we save that for next time maybe?
So let me so quickly where I am, I mean, there's 1 or 2 tests failing, which I want to, at some point I need to get at. It's a little bit old. It needs to be rebased, which I will take care of. The biggest problem right now, though, I think with it is that, so it introduces a brand new idea. Oh, well, it introduces 2 new things. So the intent had been to involve, rather than the idea of there being a load balancer based system between the agents and the server, and you use the number of servers plus 1 with Joseph's stuff as the number of things you try to connect to. It tries to go to the, okay, I don't have a load balancer in the middle, and I can configure the agent with the set of connectivity servers that it should connect to. Okay, I got that much working. What I don't have working that I need to do is some of the edge on what to do when a connectivity server fails. So it needs to be able to reconnect and really be reliable. And so there's a little for that. So the existing system seems to be fine as is. It's still the default. But when you do IP based, I need to do a little bit of work to really make those connections resilient. And so I need to just do a bunch of testing, breaking connections, and that sort of thing. So that's that is the one piece of like TBD work, big TBD work on this. And then, but one of the things is that connection management was very integral with a lot of the other code. And so I broke it out into its own connection management module, just so that it would be easy to swap out different connection management systems, because having a purely a purely configured on the agent system and a load balancer based system, I don't think those are going to be the last two we want to do. And so, I figured it was better if we just had a relatively clean API to let you swap out that logic. And I'm sure other people will want to implement new ones. And it'll probably have to grow, because I was able to do it with a very small set of interfaces, but I'm guessing that that's actually going to grow over time. But I can't anticipate what the next connection manager is going to need, so I'm going to leave it small for now, and we can think through, then when the next request like this comes in, we can see what we want. But I got an LGTM, it looks like, from Elmico. I don't know if anyone else took a look at the code and has any feedback. I love feedback. I love discussing this thing. I'm sure there are things that other people have faced in the past that I did not anticipate. So, feedback is awesome.
I can certainly offer to take a review again. Like, I'm still learning a lot of this code base, so like I'm happy to look at it and just give my opinion at the very least.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Any other topics people want to bring up? We're at the bottom of the hour here, so probably a good time to quit. But any last thoughts?
I might briefly mention congratulations, Imran, for I think getting Kubernetes membership or contributor membership. Yeah.
I was already part of Kubernetes, so I didn't know why I was doing that again, but then I realized it was for Kubernetes 6. Oh yeah.
Right, and also network proxy reviewer, and also for volunteering to do a bit of version promotion overhead. So thank you.
Yeah, and in fact, if you hit any problems, I would like to apologize for and a couple of the early folks. I think you will be the first non-Googler to ever do that kind of release promotion. So this is actually really important, because it shouldn't require any Google special permissions, but I can't swear that it doesn't. But we will, if you hit any, please let us know, and we can make sure those get fixed.
Sure, will do. Thanks. I know we are out of time. I just wanted to bring a small topic, and that is about videos being uploaded somewhere, because I'm a big fan of rewatching videos so that some of the important points I can reinforce. Like, for example, you explaining, about the version branching and all. So if there's a place that we can find to upload, it would be nice to have them rewatch.
So, SIG Cloud Provider Chair.
Yes, I have been uploading the videos, and there is a SIG Cloud Provider playlist on YouTube that you could subscribe to as well. So I've been adding them as they come out and everything. So the last handful of meetings for the last month or two should be up there.
Cloud provider. Yes. Oh, I wasn't aware of that. Thank you, Elmico.
Yeah, no problem. I try to get them up there the same day that we have the meeting, but sometimes it doesn't always work out.
Cool. Thanks.
All right, cool. Well, yeah, that's a great news to end on. Congrats, Imran, and thank you for all the hard work and everything. And I guess, yeah, I'll see you online and at the next meeting.
Bye, folks.